All right, so now we want to see how to go ahead and create a simple on-demand service. Now, in order to do that, we're going to use the same demo we started with in our previous module. Right? So basically, if you recall that we've got this class here called a worker class, right? And remember, it had basically three operations in it. We had one where it could get the location, right? One where it could take that location and convert it into a human readable address, and then it would have the ability to save that out to the SD card. Right? So that's the same thing we're going to do here. So what I've got it set up now is that, and this takes us back to kind of the beginning of it, where when someone clicks the menu option to say do work, it goes through and it does those operations. As you might recall, any of those operations could end up blocking for a few seconds. All of them could have just taken some time in and of themselves. So none of them are appropriate to actually do on the main UI thread. As we know, we can't just launch a simple background thread because that creates all the issues we talked about with possibly being terminated before it completes. So this is really kind of a perfect example of where an on-demand service comes in, where you just want to kind of launch something off and let it run in the background. Right? So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and create our on-demand service class. Right? So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a new Java class. And basically I'm just going to call this my on-demand worker. As recall, it has to extend our intent service. Right? And so it extends intent service. Now, intent service has some methods associated with it, right? And we said that although it has a number of things, the only one we have to override is the onHandle intent. So I'm going to go ahead and use the IDE just to create that method for me. So it sets that up. And remember also that we have to provide a constructor. Right, so we're going to make a public constructor of our own here, demand worker, and all this is going to do is called the superclass constructor, and you just have to pass a string, and that string again is simply used to name the worker thread. So really, you're just kind of providing a name for that thread. So if you do your debugging, you can see which thread is yours. Right, so let's call this my on-demand worker for the thread name. Right, and so at this point, I've created kind of the simplest service I can. Right, it doesn't do anything. But it actually is a service in the sense that it inherits from a class that implements a service, and I provide my onHandle intent. So what I'll do here then is I'll go here back to the activity, and let's go ahead and grab those calls that I was making, cut those. I'm going to implement them back here. It's just saying that one of the classes that you're pasting in here requires the location package, so go ahead and put that in. So I've done. So now it goes ahead and puts that on the onHandle intent. So now whenever this service is run, we'll go back here, and on the service thread, we'll go ahead and create the worker and perform the operations. Now one of the things I've added to this class is this little guy here called log helper. And if you look at this, it's got a method. It's going to be a method, process, and thread ID. All we do is we give this a label, and it writes out to logcat, whatever our label is, the ID of the process that's running currently and the thread. Right, so if you look here in the activity, I actually call log process and thread ID in the onCreate. So we can see the process ID and the thread where onCreate was called. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I'm going to go ahead and put it here in my menu handler as well, where I call do work. So we'll have that there. And I'm just going to do this one as the do work. So we can label what thread the do work method gets called on. As you expect, that'll be the same thread that the activity was created on. We'll go back here in my on-demand worker, and let's go ahead and add that call here as well. And so this one will be my on-demand worker. onHandle intent. So that way we can see what thread and process that this guy is running in. Right, so that sets up my class now that is my service. Right, and so if I just do a build here real quick, should all build fine. Okay, so that built. Now, I've got a class that acts as a service, but it's not yet a valid service. In order for it to be a valid service, I will actually have to have it in my manifest as well. Right? So if I go out here to my Android manifest, what I need to do here is inside the application, add a service tag. Okay? So the service has to have a name, and that name is going to be the class that actually implements the service. Right? So that's my on-demand worker. Now, one of the issues is that we've got to get a fully qualified package name. right? So I could actually say com.pluralsight.onDemandWorker, or the way the manifest works inside of Android is because I specify the package up here at the manifest level. If I just put a dot in front of onDemandWorker, it says that this class is found inside the package identified by that package tag. Right, now the other thing I need to do is create a label. And the label is just any place where a human readable description is needed. This is used. So I'll just say my Pluralsight on demand worker. Okay. And that sets up my service. And so with that, I actually have a service created inside of my application. I've got the class defined, and I've got the manifest entries. One thing to note is that if you're using this IDE, all the steps I did there, with the exception of filling in the body of onHandleIntent, the IDE could have done for me. If I would have gone here, when I said right-click New, instead of saying Java class, had I said Android component, and then picked service, if I did that and gave it a name, it would have actually created a valid service class for me. You'd have to tweak a few little things with it, but it would take care of doing the manifest entry as well as laying out all the basic code stuff for us.